Tasmania experienced quite a disaster this year.
We were in the middle of a drought at the time, and we were importing coal-fired power from Victoria across an undersea cable, and that cable broke.
We had quite low levels in our dams.
We had not only the most extreme drought that we've ever had, we had the most extreme marine heat wave that we've ever documented.
The light stayed on and I kept using my computer all the time, so there was no immediate crisis for people. Where the crisis is economic. And some of the big industries have had to pare back their consumption, and so it's costed them a lot of money as well. It's been a huge cost. I mean, the government went to extraordinary lengths and scrounged all the diesel generators it could around the country and brought them here, and so we're virtually running half of our electricity supply on diesel and gas. This is a hydroelectric state. It was a terrible situation. It's cost the state and the energy utility so much that there will be much less money for the state government to spend on hospitals and schools and so forth.
Why did it happen? It happened at the end point because the cable went down, but it happened because we don't plan for climate change.
Countries that are lucky enough to have the terrain and climate to have hydropower are being significantly affected by climate change. In Tasmania, the local utility had to cut back the rated output of its entire system by 10% 10 years ago, and we're still suffering from lack of power output. So the warming environment and increased drought is meaning much less water into the storages.
I think Tasmania has a proud history of renewable energy. There was a time where we were virtually 100% renewable.
We're blessed in Tasmania to have opportunities for lots of renewable energy. We have a west coast, which is one of the windiest places in the world. We have a very elevated area in the middle of Tasmania and a very high rainfall.
I think the trouble we find is that all spheres of government aren't here for the long term. They're here to be elected in the next 3 or 4 years, and commitments to huge projects are very problematical.
The change is not going to come from the top, I've discovered. Change will only come from the bottom. When you get communities involved, and they can see that there's a benefit, and particularly a cost benefit.
There's so many people around Tasmania who are putting solar panels in despite the fact the government doesn't give them any support, investing their own money, already doing it.
Probably one of the best ways I can demonstrate that is with a 75-year-old lady, a pensioner, who rang me to come and discuss solar and storage with her, and I questioned her as to what benefit do you see for yourself? And her answer to me, Michael, was that, well, if my state government can't offer me energy security, I'll get it for myself.
This is Kettering in the Channel region, south of Hobart. It's an area of beautiful hills and forests and waterways, and it has a lovely cool climate that was part of the attraction for us. For us to connect to the grid would have involved running power lines for maybe 1.5 kilometres. So the combination of that high cost of connecting to the grid and our own strong preference for renewable energy was the reason we've decided to go off-grid. We have the creek, so we could put in the hydro system. I mean, most people who go off-grid use just solar, but the hydro complements it beautifully, because when in summer the creek doesn't flow at all, but we get plenty of sun, so the solar panels work. In winter, when there is a lot less sun, the creek flows and the hydro generator makes up the difference.
The old days of the big generator sitting at the end of an ever-growing grid is finished when you can have your own systems delivering electricity to your door.
This station here is a little bit over 0.5 megawatt. It produces enough power on full load for about 630 houses. It has an average output of 300 kilowatts, which is about 400 houses. It generates 2.5 gigawatt hours of power annually. The cost of this station here was just under 2 million. These small schemes, they're called embedded generation. So they're embedded into the grid, and quite often they're generating power where it's needed. So it doesn't have to be distributed over long distances. And of course, when we transport power over long distances, there are considerable losses.
Tasmania's energy security is mostly at risk with transport energy. We supply most of our own electricity, but we import every single last drop of transport energy, and we're at the end of the shipping line. We use more energy in our transport than we do in our houses.
I think electric cars are part of the future, not just for Tasmania, but for all of Australia and all of the world. All of the major car manufacturers are investigating it. We're just quite happy to plug into a power point at home. If we go into Hobart, we know there are places in the public car parks there where we can plug into a power point in the car park.
We rely almost totally on, as you said, fossil fuels. We use $1 billion per year in transport fuel in Tasmania. By far, transport is our greatest greenhouse gas emitter.
Good car.
It's the best piece of machinery I've ever owned. I have a 7 kilowatt single phase charger at home, and it takes me around about 8 hours to get a full charge.
That's pretty good.
Not bad, and it costs around about $14 for 400 kilometres of range.
E-mobility provides a number of different solutions to energy. It can help smooth out the grid in times of high energy consumption. It can help put energy back into the grid when needed. It can help lower the need for consumption of fossil fuels, the energy that it requires to transport those fossil fuels across to Tasmania.
Multi-megawatt solar farms can be constructed in a matter of months these days. We can't continue to be reliant on the dirtiest brown coal-fired plant in Australia and one of the dirtiest in the world, continuing to supply a beautiful, pristine environment like we're sitting in here today. What a great irony that we have such great storage of hydro and we've been keeping the lights on with diesel generators. Diesel fumes are not the answer for Tasmania.
If you have lots of different areas generating, we the people, and houses and factories and paddocks, become the new generator. And that means that the old way of doing business with the status quo type managers who failed to see the risk will need to change the way they operate.